Thank you so much for joining us today for our fourth GCI webinar. And before we begin, while we wait for everyone to log in, because we do have a large crowd of about 40 people, we'd love for you to put in chat where you are joining us from, what country, what city. We'd love to know that. And if you're connected to GCI in some way as a fellow, an alum, a mentor, please put that in chat as well. We would love to hear from you. I see that there are a number of people signing in. Again, thank you so much for joining us for today's GCI Talks. This is a fourth in our series. I'll be introducing Dr. Fujita in just a moment, but again, as we wait for everyone to come in, please put in the chat where you're joining us from. I see someone's joining us from Kyoto, Japan. Thank you so much. Good evening to you. We have a teacher in Tarrytown, New York, one of our past educator participants. And again, those of you here with us, if you could put in where you're joining us from and any connection you have to GCI, we would love to hear where you are joining us from. So I think without further ado, we'll get underway while we wait for others to join. Once again, good morning. Thank you for joining today's Global Citizens Initiative GCI Talks webinar titled Authentic Leadership. This is a discussion with Dr. Hiro Fujita. And Dr. Fujita, I'm so pleased and honored that you're taking the time to be with us today. GCI Talks is a series of conversations on topics of deep relevance to GCI's mission, including education, ethics, and global leadership. Today's webinar is being recorded and is on the record. And for those of you who don't know, I am David Janes, Executive Director of Global Citizens Initiative. And if you don't know GCI, we're a Connecticut-based 501c3 nonprofit organization that engages, educates, and empowers the next generation to become lifelong leaders of positive change. Through signature programs that work directly with students, secondary school, educators, and schools, we provide the educational tools and ongoing support to equip secondary school students with the mindsets, skills, and resources to become thoughtful, committed, and ethical global citizens and leaders. And since 2014, we've impacted directly over 250 students from over 70 countries. And we hope everyone who's on the webinar today might consider joining us for one of our programs. And thanks again. I see someone is joining from Mexico. So we've got quite an international crowd here. Once again, today's webinar is titled Authentic Leadership, a discussion with Dr. Hiro Fujita. His bio will be posted in the chat, so I won't go in depth, but just 2 or 3 quick things. He is CEO of Quality Electrodynamics in Cleveland, Ohio, and he is also chair of the board of Ohio State University. If I were to go through his entire bio, it would take up this entire webinar. So I will just let you read it, and please watch the video that was sent to you. Well, without further ado, I would like to turn the floor over to Hiro, who is going to make some remarks, tell you a little bit about his background and some of his thoughts and advice about leadership and authentic leadership. We invite you, the audience, to engage with us. You can ask questions at any time in the chat or the Q&A, and we will have a section later on where we'll return to those. Hiro, thank you again for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. David Janes, and I truly appreciate this opportunity to be invited to share my story with the audience. Before I start, actually, I would like to thank you very much for your continued leadership to make a difference, for younger generation to follow us. So, to that end, Global Citizens Initiative, GCI, has been doing a great job. So I'm honored to be part of that effort. And for next, 10 to 15 minutes, I'd like to share my story with the audience. And as David said, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask those. So once again, my name is Hiroyuki Fujita. I was born in Nara, Japan, and I grew up in Japan, until I went to Waseda University in Tokyo. And on my freshman year at Waseda University, I had the opportunity to be an exchange student to UCSD, University of California at San Diego. And I was actually quite amazed by being exposed to a different culture, because you may know this, but in Japan, many things are kind of structured, including the career path, right? If you want to become a doctor, you go this way. If you want to become a diplomat, you go that way, and then, what have you. And when I was growing up, I had a dream which conflicts, so to speak, with the career path set by the social perceptions. What I mean by that is I wanted to be a diplomat, but the subjects which I enjoyed most were physics and mathematics at that time. And in Japan at that time, if you want to be a diplomat, actually you have to major in non-science subjects, such as law, languages, and other non-science subjects, as I said. And then, most likely you'd have to go into one of the selective schools and to become a diplomat. And I was questioning, why is this a way for one to become a diplomat? I think, what I would imagine would be that in order for you to be an effective diplomat, you want to appreciate science, technology, and other things in a very broad way. So why should scientists, engineers be, excluded from that conversation? So with those, feelings, I went to UCSD, and then I was actually quite amazed that in the States, if you want to do something, it's up to you to do it. And nobody tells you this is a way to do it. So I felt that, oh my God, maybe coming to the US is my way to, explore my potentials. So I decided to leave Japan on my actually second year at Waseda. And then I decided to come to the States. But the thing was, I didn't speak English well at that time. And in order for me to truly, grow in the States, I had to start over. So I started a college education from freshman again, at the school called Monmouth College in Illinois, small college. But then, everybody stayed in a dormitory. So I thought that it's a good idea to understand how American, students live and then, interact with each other. So I was also staying at the dormitory. So, I studied math and physics at that time. And as I said, I was strong at these subjects. So I did well. But at the same time, I was learning the culture, US culture, and other nuances, which may not be obvious to the people if they haven't had those experiences. On my senior year, I was selected to be a researcher at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee. I was doing a X-ray diffraction study on superconducting material. And I enjoyed it, actually. It was part of physics education, and I enjoyed it. But then I had to ask this question to myself, which is this something I want to spend the rest of my life? There are people who would enjoy, right, going deeper and deeper on one subject. That's absolutely fine, right? But I wanted to actually get, involved with many different things. And to that end, actually, David has said that I do many jobs now. In fact, I probably have, 6, 7, 8 different titles and getting involved with many different organizations. To that end, I haven't changed since I was a young kid. I mean, I'm doing many things. At the end of the day, I am doing what's important to me, what interests me, right? So at least US has given me that platform for me to explore all these different opportunities. As I said, so I decided that, going into deeper, one subject in physics, subject, that wasn't what I wanted to do. I felt that I wanted to do something related to physics and medicine because, as I said, physics is could be a foundation for many different subjects, but I was more interested in medicine at that time. So I decided to, come to Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, as a graduate student in physics department. And my goal was to, do something, research, related to both physics and medicine. Well, that was the reason I do what I do today. Throughout my graduate study, PhD study, basically I was applying electromagnetism to understand what's happening to a human body when the human body goes into a MRI scanner or other medical imaging modalities. So that was one of my projects. And basically, I was asked to analyze what's happened to the human body, as I said, in an MRI scanner. So I did that study. I presented that study to an imaging company, called Pika International. Now it's a part of Philips, healthcare. But I did that, and then I gave a presentation on the outcome. And after I finished my presentation, the senior manager at Pika International came to me, and then he said, why don't you join us as a researcher, in our research department? Because that way we can sponsor you a green card, and we can, of course, we can pay you also. And as a graduate student, of course, at that time, I still remember my stipend was $1,000 per month. That's what I was doing at that time in the 90s. And going to a Pika, of course, it went from $1,000 to more. So I said, why not? I will join the research department as a researcher. Well, I finished my PhD while working, and I was at Pika, as I said, doing the research for MRI. But then I felt that just doing the same thing deeper and deeper, that's fine. But I felt that I could do more. I think, I felt that I wanted to do more with respect to my contributions. So around those times, I was headhunted by 2 startup companies. And I decided that, okay, I'm going to leave Pika and I'm going to join a startup company because being small, right, you would have more opportunities to do more. So I said that, okay, I'll do that. And then I joined a small startup company, which grew very quickly. And before we knew it, that small startup company was acquired by GE Medical Systems. So I went from a mid-sized global company to a very small startup American company to one of the largest international companies. So those experiences gave me different lenses to actually look at things, right? Because if I only knew a small startup, I don't know how bigger companies operate, right? Likewise, if you only work at a bigger company, you do not know what's like, working at a startup company. So, from 2000 to 2006, actually, those 6 years, I was trained to develop a different lenses to look at things in life. So, different lenses. I mean, you may say a compound eye, right, as opposed to a monocular, eye, right? So now, I mean, what's interesting is when I was going through those experiences at that time, I didn't think that way. I was just focusing on what I had to do that day, that moment, and try to do the best of what I could do. That was what I was thinking at that time. But now I'm mid-50s, and I look back my life, I could see, oh, those experiences truly gave me different experiences. And therefore, instead of having a monocular eye, I do have a compound eye to appreciate a thing from different angles, right? Which is very important. And actually, my physics training also gave me something very useful. As I said, I studied, I did research, on electromagnetism applied to medical imaging, right? But when you talk about physics, what's interesting is in physics, you try to simplify, and then you just try to understand the most important thing of that event or phenomena, right? So that's the reason if you studied physics, I'm sure you have encountered a problem where a problem goes like there is a sphere, sphere is rolling, over the hill. And then, what's happening to that, ball, right? Why is that a sphere? Because it's the simplest form that mathematics can describe, right? It could be a cow, it could be a dog, but I mean, you cannot quite easily describe a dog or cow in a mathematical form. That's the reason we use a, just a point, right? Mass or, a sphere, because we know how to describe that mathematically. So in physics, if you do that for so many years, I've been doing that for so many years, right? Then you try to simplify a very complicated problem to a simplified, problem where you can analyze. Actually, that experience to me has been one of the most useful things, because in life, I'm not talking about the physics problem anymore. You encounter many different problems, right? In business, in organizations, and whatever you do. The way I think is let's get rid of secondary, thirdly, insignificant things from the problem that we are trying to solve. And then I try to leave the problem in the simplest form so that at least we can analyze that. In other words, you can say that instead of looking at a small tree in the woods, you try to understand what the woods is, right? Because that's what you are trying to understand. In that discussion, you don't care what happens to a leaf. That's insignificant. You are truly looking at the entire forest, right? That view is how physicists view the world. So to that end, I mean, it was very useful. But so, as I said, I had a, mid-sized company experience to a startup experience to a big corporate, international corporation company experience, right? And then being trained as a physicist, I try to simplify things so that I can understand what the problem is. Now, working in the industry, as I said, from 2002 to 2006, I felt that, well, if I created my own company, I would have done, things different, right? So that's the reason I started my own company back in 2006, which is a QED, as David mentioned. And then we were specialized in designing and manufacturing, subsystems which make a MRI scanner, including radio frequency coils, gradient coils, and main magnets. So that's what my business has been doing. In 2019, I sold my business to Canon as you may know, Canon is a global company headquartered in Tokyo. Perhaps it's known as the camera company, but you see, as a global giant, Canon was also recognizing the risks of what iPhone did, right? Because now you can carry a phone, and then that comes with a camera. Nobody buys a dedicated camera anymore. It was written on the wall, so it was a urgent matter for Canon to shift from a camera business to something else, while still utilizing the strength of the company, which is imaging technologies. So when you think about it, medical imaging, diagnostic imaging, as long as mankind exists in this world, those are the necessary technologies. So Canon shifted from conventional imaging technologies to healthcare, diagnostic imaging technology leader. And in that effort, actually, I was invited to sell my company to be part of Canon. So that's what I did in 2019. And then now I'm a CTO of Canon Medical Systems, CTMR division. At the same time, since US is the biggest market, I mean, Canon wants to expand the market share with respect to healthcare innovations. So, Canon has started the Canon Healthcare USA last November, actually, and I was named chairman of Canon Healthcare USA. So I do these businesses to make a difference for people, right? Whatever we do, I mean, in medical technologies, they will be useful and, for helping people everywhere. So I like, that culture of the business. And by the way, when you talk about business, it comes down to the culture of the business, the company, right? So as I developed QED from scratch, number one focus was that, do we have the culture that we can all share together? Because you talk about US business and then my business, I have associates coming from different countries with different religions, right? What bonds them together is the culture that we are going to embrace. So to me, culture is very important. And then to understand what culture is to everybody, as I said, having multiple lenses, a compound eye, become very important. To that end, I think younger people who are participating in this session today, my message will be that, please expose yourself to different cultures and different views, and try to understand what the other side of the coin is, right? Because in order to truly understand why things are how they are, you need to know the other side. And to do that, you need to be exposed to different views. That's the training. I mean, I would like you to, go through while you are young, because I was talking to David just recently. And what's interesting is today, as a business CEO, I have to make decisions every day, some kind of decisions. So what product are we going to make? What will be the new idea, right? So there will be data available from the market, and then you try to go through the data and you try to decide what's important. But at the end of the day, I always ask my senior management team members, what does your instinct tell you to do? Because that instinct, I value that so much. And then, by the way, I don't think young people have that yet, because in order for me to say that I have the instinct, that instinct was an accumulation of all the things I have done up to this point. Good things, mistakes, failures, all these things. So that's the reason I have my instinct today, which is a reflection of what I have gone through up to this point. So at the end of the day, you need that instinct, right? When you meet people, you have to judge what kind of people they are. Well, you can read a bio or CV, and then you can see, oh, this person has done these things, wonderful. But at the end of the day, it is that gut feeling you have that, oh, do we resonate with each other, right? So in order to develop that instinct, you have to go through all these things while you are young. So I think, I'm already taking up a lot of time, but my key messages would be one step at a time, right? Nothing happens overnight. So you have to keep going, right? While giving your best shot, every day, no matter what you do, right? So that takes me to the next key point, which is connecting the dots. That was what Steve Jobs said at the Stanford commencement, in 2005. We don't know what our future will be, but we have to believe in, ourselves, that if we keep going and if we keep giving our best shots, right, when we look back, at our life at some point, we can see what each event meant, to all of us. So that's, connecting the dots, right? And as I said, expose yourself to different views, multi-lenses or compound eye, which is very important. And another thing is that, as David said, I also chair the board of trustees at the Ohio State University. So there you have different leaders together serving on the board. So how do I actually, come to the consensus? You need transparency, and you want to be known as a person that, well, he is going, no matter who he talks to, he is going to be consistent, right? That reputation is very important, and it's very challenging, by the way, because sometimes you have to confront other people. But I think we cannot be afraid of that, because at the end of the day, I want to be known as a person who is consistent and then who challenges, wrong ideas, right? So I say that transparency is very important. Consistency is very important. And then when you talk about whatever topics, right, with different people, with different backgrounds, religions, and views, I always believe that we have to focus on what's right, not who is right. As long as we have a conversation and we keep in mind that we are talking about things from the standpoint of what's right, as opposed to who is right, I think we can have more discussions in a constructive way. And then at the end of the day, when the decision is made, right, we all have to share that together. I don't want to hear that, well, I didn't agree with that, because that's not fair to the group of people who have those discussions. So, I mean, I can keep going, but I think at least I shared some of the essence of how I think and how I approach to things. So with that, David, maybe we can open up, this session for questions.
Hiro, thank you so much for that. It is so incredibly rich on so many levels, and I have hours and hours of questions, but we only have 30 minutes. So let me do two things. Audience members, please post any questions that you have in the chat or Q&A, and I'll turn to those. But meanwhile, let me ask you a few questions, Hiro, on a few different levels. The first question I have is, here at GCI, we work primarily with high school students, and we stay in touch with them for life. Our oldest alumni are, maybe some are at Ohio State, who knows, but many of them are college students, graduate students early in their careers. And one of the things we hear from those who are early in their careers or making the college to career transition is they really struggle with trying to decide what path they should follow. Maybe they have a particular passion, but then they have a job offer that's in some other field that's safe and secure. And they struggle, how should I make that choice? Our current fellows who are high school students, they're looking out, 5, 6 years into the future, into a vast unknown. I mean, you know better than anyone that knowledge is expanding at such a rapid pace. Technological advances are happening at such a rapid pace that high school students today have no idea what careers will even be available to them. So, I'm wondering, you mentioned some of it, but if I was, a high school student in front of you saying, Hiro, how do I prepare myself best for an unknown future, a future that's rapidly changing? And how do I navigate these choices between what really I'm passionate about and maybe some secure job that I've been offered?
That's a very profound question, but let me answer in the following way. First of all, if you have 10 people, there will be 10 different career paths, right? Everybody is unique. You have your own career path, which is yours, and I have my own career path, which is mine. And then we don't have to, let's say, imitate other people's path, especially if you are a high school student. You haven't been exposed to many things yet, right? You are only talking about 17 years, 18 years, right? So you may not even know what you enjoy, to tell you the truth. Some people might have already, known that, this is what I want to do. That's great. But I think, if I were a high school student today, I probably do not still know what I want to do because I haven't been exposed to many things yet. So my, suggestion would be that, as I said, get exposed to different things. By doing that, eventually you will find out what you would enjoy, right? I did many different things. And at that time, once again, I wasn't quite sure what exactly, I want to do in the future. But that became clear as I tried many different things, right? I started solid state physics, material physics, right? And that was fine. But I said that, well, it's a little bit different from what I want to do. And then I said that, well, I want to apply physics to medicine. And that's what I did, right? But I also talked about I wanted to be a diplomat. Well, funny thing is that after so many years, Japanese government asked me to represent, Japan in Ohio as a honorary consul of Japan. So now I'm also doing some diplomatic work. So you just don't know. What's important is that get exposed to different views, different ideas, and try your best at that moment. Because if you don't try your best, you will not learn anything, right? So that's what I would say. There is nothing wrong for a high school student not to know what he or she wants to do, at that time, because as I said, they have not been exposed to many things yet. So get exposed to different views, meet with other people who have different ideas, and then try to understand what they are saying, where they are going to go, and then you will have your own opinion. So life is accumulation of all these events.
Thank you so much. I'm really struck by the compound eye concept. You talk about that in the video that the Prime Minister's Office of Japan made, which we've shared with participants here. You talked about that today. There's so much to say about that. As a sociologist, myself, the sociology of knowledge is all about how these different fields were sort of invented and almost in a way fake. So interdisciplinarity is perhaps the reality of the world. But what I want to ask you is actually a real practical question. In your multiple roles, whether it's chair of Ohio State or in other organizations, companies, your diplomatic work, for instance, as you said, you're constantly faced with people who see the world in different ways.
Right.
Here at GCI, we have students from around the world. We bring them together around a Harkness table. This comes from Phillips Exeter, and we give them a chance to really express their different views and listen carefully, digest that, and have conversations. But when you look around the world today, it seems very polarized and very difficult for people to have conversations that are authentic. It's very hard for them to, disagree without being disagreeable. So I'm wondering if you have some practical lessons. If you're sitting around with a group of people who have very different views than you, how do you focus, as you put it, on what's right instead of, letting the emotion of the moment kind of take you away, or instead of letting personality get in the way? How do you practically do that as a leader?
That's, in fact, that's a never-ending effort we all have to do, right? But there are a few things I keep in mind. As a leader, if you want to be a good leader, you want to have the ability to listen to others quietly, right? You don't intervene somebody's conversations. Oh, well, no, I don't agree with something like that, right? You want to be able to listen to the other party very quietly, because there is always the other side, right? I look at a coin or whatever, the view, I see this view, frontal view, but there is a back view also. So which means there are always at least two views existing for us to keep in mind. It could be more, right? Depending upon how you look at it. So that's something we all have to acknowledge first. If I have a very sensitive discussion with a group of trustees or group of leaders, the way I'm going to start is that, guys, this is very sensitive. And then we all know that we have different views. But let's promise something, right? When somebody is expressing his or her idea, don't interrupt that. Let's listen to that person very carefully, quietly. And also, let's also agree that we are not focusing on who is right in that discussion, but rather what's right as a human being, actually. Because that's I hope that's a universal thing, right? We do know, good behavior, bad behavior, what's right as a human being. It may not cover all the things, but at least if everybody keeps that in mind, I think we have a better place to talk about challenging subjects. And then another thing is at the end of the day, in business or at the universities, right, you have to make a decision, because everything is a function of time. Things will not wait for us forever. Every day we have to make a decision. What's going to be important is the process we go through together. As I said, ability to listen to others quietly. And then let's focus on what's right as a human being, right? Not who is right. I want to eliminate subjectivity from the conversation. Another important thing is that whatever the outcome we are going to arrive at that day or at that meeting, let's agree with everybody that we own that conclusion together after the conversations, after going through the conversations. I don't want to hear from you, David, later that, oh, I didn't agree with you. They have decided that, but I didn't agree with that. That's not fair. At the end of the day, we have to make a decision. The process becomes very important. It's a professional expectations I would impose on everybody that once we arrive at a decision, we all have to say, after the discussions, that's the conclusion we own together. I think that's very important. Otherwise, we are going to have situations where everything is divisive. So that process, and then to do that, actually, the moderator or chair has to, gain that trust from the, members who participate in that meeting that, yeah, he is neutral, she is neutral. Yeah, it's very challenging, but at least let's follow, the guidance of that moderator, right? Because he has been consistent, she has been consistent over the years. He or she will not, give a biased opinion. That reputation, that's what I meant by never-ending effort, right? As long as we exist, David, we have to keep doing that because that's your reputation, that's my reputation. We can lose it in 1 second. If we don't do what we said we are going to do, we lose that reputation. So unfortunately, that's what I meant that by, painful, in that we have to keep doing that as long as we exist. And that's a reputation. It's going to take 100 years to build your reputation. You can lose it in 1 second. That's a pain, right? But that's how I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
No, you are. Thank you, Hiro. I want to allow one of our alums. I'm going to read a question that she has. This is from Kylie, who is following in your footsteps, Hiro, at Oxford, doing medical physics. And Kylie asks about really the subject or what we titled this talk. She says, thank you so much for speaking to us. I was wondering what you would say is the most challenging thing about authentic leadership.
As I said, just now, I think to be consistent all the time is the most challenging because you see, depending upon who I see, if I don't want a confrontation, and if I can change my opinion, depending upon who I see, that moment may be okay, right? Because, we had a conversation, it went well, but imagine you want to be consistent, and then now I'm, sitting together with David, and then I have a different view, and I have to convince David that, David, that's not how I think, and that's not what others think. Therefore, I need to disagree with some of the points you have made. Nobody enjoys confrontation. So authentic leadership, in my opinion, comes with pains because you want to be consistent. And sometimes you are going to confront other people, which nobody enjoys, right? Nobody enjoys confrontation. But I think if you want to be known as a consistent leader, everybody, place their trust. You have to go through all these moments. That's to me, that's the challenging part, right? Because I don't want to make enemies, to be honest with you, right? But depending upon the subject, from time to time, you are going to make, I don't want to say enemies, but people who have strong opposite views. How do we coexist with them? What conversation do we need so that at the end, the outcome will be shared by the other party and our side? That's a challenge.
Thank you, Hiro. One of our mentors who's in Kyoto, Fernando, writes, thanks a lot for the inspiring talk. I actually share some of your experiences myself, and I wonder how you feel about your initial dream of becoming a diplomat. You seem satisfied with the steps you took, but do you ever think of that dream you kind of left behind? I'm not sure if you did leave it behind because you do play a diplomatic role, but yeah, how do you feel about your initial dream and the steps that you've taken?
Yeah, that's another interesting question. I think at the end of the day, I mean, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I think that I am living the life that is only something that I can do, right? Whether industry jobs or non-profit organizations or community work, volunteers, or some diplomatic work. I mean, at the end of the day, I am doing Hiro's job, which is only available to me. So I don't want to now. I mean, I'm mid-50s now, so I'm no longer that teenagers, right? But I think what I appreciate is that at the end of the day, I am doing that something that I'm the only one who can do this. And as long as I can add a value and make a difference to the community, I'm in, that's my job and that's my destiny. So I don't go back to that original concept that, well, I want to be, shall I go back to be a dedicated diplomat? I think, diplomacy, by the way, is something you need anyway, whether you do business or anything you do, right? Because, as I said, everything in life comes down to two people. Everything, whether it's a business negotiation or partnership or identifying an opportunity for business or for whatever, right? It begins with my idea or your idea, but it begins with a relationship of at least two people. And then once you have two people or beyond, more than that, it's diplomacy. How do you interact with each other? Because we have different views and different strengths, but we want to create a harmonious, society or community or group or organization. It's diplomacy. So I don't now put a boundary between what I do anymore, because everything I do is the job I have to do, and I enjoy doing that. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but that's how I would respond.
Well, I think you raise another interesting question. Your question I had for you was, how do you succeed across so many different spheres? As you said at the outset, you have 6, 7, 8, maybe more titles, numerous jobs. Someone might say, how do you accomplish all of this? How are you effective at all of these things? I think you've kind of answered it by saying you see them as all connected, right, not as disparate things. But I wonder if you could comment on that. You're successful in so many fields, taking on so many tasks. How do you survive and thrive, not only in each one of those spheres, but also just to keep your own wellness and strength and endurance up?
Yeah, I do get that question often, actually, because when they see the number of titles I have, the most frequently asked question would be, how do you do all these things? And as I said, if you have 10 people, you have 10 different paths or careers, right? And to me, as I said, it is the job, Hiro Fujita's job, which happens to include all these different things. But as David, as you said, to me, they are all interconnected, right? At the end of the day, I'm trying to do something useful for the organization, for the business, and then whatever I do. But one thing I do is I try to focus on what I have to do now. As I said, right now I am focusing on this as if this is everything to me. And then, 2 hours later, I have different things. So I try to focus on, things just before my eyes. I don't try to think, well, I would have to do this. Later I would have to do that, tomorrow. Yes, that's true, but I focus on what I have to do now. And it's an accumulation of all these things. And once again, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I just, focus is very important. And then, when you have time, you try to relax also, because you cannot keep focusing on everything all the time, right? So you need a break. And, for a break, I don't do much, actually. I try to just reflect, So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but.
No, that's a great question. There are a couple questions from the audience, but I have one other one I just wanted to touch upon, which is a slightly different sphere. Maybe it's a management or leadership kind of question, but you talked about your experiences, and I know currently across the different domains that you work, sometimes you're working in small organizations. Sometimes you're working in massive global organizations. And you and I have had conversations before about management and leadership in these different kinds of organizations. I remember you recommended the Team of Teams book by General McChrystal. And I'm just wondering, if you have any particular guidance to leaders at different levels. Are there different things that leaders need to do if you're in a small organization versus a large one, or do you see some, couple of gems of wisdom, of good guidance, whether you're leading a massive global organization or a small organization in one particular location?
David, that's a great question. And I have already touched upon that during this session, but I will say, consistency becomes very important. I will tell you why. As you know, I'm not in my office all the time, right? Most of the time, I'm somewhere else, in Japan or in another country or different cities, right? But what I meant by consistency is that if you create a culture around you with the people you trust, right? Let's talk about my company now. Whether I'm here or not, I have spent enough time up to this point, and I will spend more time in the coming, years. My associates will know, oh, if Hiro were there, he would make this decision, right? I think that's a leadership also, because if you have to be here all the time, that's not going to be quite possible. And then if people have to say, well, we don't know what to make out of this, right? What decisions do we have to make given all these materials, given this data set, right? What will be the conclusion? I mean, if their answer is that, oh, in order to make a decision, Hiro has to be here, I am failing as a leader already, because that's the reason I talked about the culture. What I meant by culture is the leadership culture, where people sense the presence of you, whether you are there or not. To do that, you have to be consistent. I started a company back in 2006. I have been making an effort to be consistent since that time, all the times. Because if you are consistent, no matter what, people say, well, if he is sitting here, he would make this comment. Right? That's the reason culture becomes very important. And you need to interact with all these associates so that they know how you think. They know how I think. Given a concrete example, where we have different ideas, different views, if I were there, of course, I would make my own opinion as well. And, while hearing other people's opinions, but at the end of the day, I have to make a decision. How do I make that decision? That process becomes very important. And, it has to be backed by transparency and also consistency, right? So I think whether the organization is small or big, that consistency is very, very important. And then, as I said, it takes 100 years to build that consistency. You have to keep doing that. There is not, I cannot say that I have done enough, therefore I will not have to do it anymore. It's not like that. As long as I exist, I have to keep doing that. That's my consistency. That would become my reputation. That would become the foundation of the leadership culture, whether I'm here or not. I hope I'm answering your question,
So maybe part of the reason you're in the health innovation field is to help people live beyond 100 years so you can have the impact. Now I know the real secret. There's a related question. You've really kind of answered it in a way, but I just want to be fair to the questioner. I want to read it, and it's a slightly different angle. But it says, Dr. Fujita, you mentioned the importance of transparency in authentic leadership. How do you create a culture where your team can share their ideas and feedback honestly? How do you as a leader approach feedback from your team? So you've talked about transparency, you've talked about consistency, you've talked about, you don't need to be there all the time. You're allowing others to take the lead and they kind of know what your thinking would be because it's consistent. But when your team comes to you with conflicting ideas or different ideas, how do you create a context for that? And how do you try to develop an organization where that kind of other ideas are allowed to come out?
Well, as I said, first of all, if somebody comes to me, I would listen to that person quietly. I would make sure that he or she has the opportunity to express, his ideas or her ideas. I don't try to intercept in the middle of the conversation. And then after that, if I can point out some of the things that I don't quite agree, I say that, by the way, I don't agree point A, point C, point F you mentioned. And this is what I think for these, 3 points. What do we have to do to come to the consensus? Once again, that's diplomacy also, right? So that's what I meant. Everything is interconnected. It's how you communicate, right? If I want to, make you an enemy, it's very easy to do, right? I mean, we have a topic of, something that we are talking about. We are disagreeing with each other, let's say, right? If I don't care whether you be my friend or enemy, I mean, I can easily make you an enemy of mine, depending upon how I say, what I say, the nuance, which is, by the way, what I share at my management meeting all the time. You may be saying the same thing, but how you say it, the nuance, they become very, very important. In fact, you can have 0 or 180-degree difference. So you have to be mindful, and that's part of we talked about diplomat and other things. At the end of the day, it's a human relationship, right? Can we embrace our human relationship when 2 people or more have different views? At the end of the day, our goal should be to create a harmonious world, right? Because that's what I enjoy. That's where I want to belong to, right? So I think that how you communicate, even if I disagree with you, and the nuance I give, become very important.
Hiro, thank you. We only have 2 minutes left, but there is one questioner out there. I wonder if you can just give a rapid response to Masahiro, who asks, when you are confronted with multiple obstacles on business, how do you keep your mind stable to make the right decision? I appreciate your advice on this.
So that's where I talked about, being a physicist. It's been helping me a lot. There are many obstacles, as you said, but I try to analyze all these obstacles in a different way. What's the most challenging obstacle? What's the insignificant obstacle? I try to look at the forest, not a leaf or branch, right? So once I understand the biggest challenge or problem or obstacle I see, I try to analyze that, and I try to come up with a solution that would help me address those obstacles. And I'm hoping that the other things can be addressed, in an equal way, in a similar manner. But you have to simplify the situation.
Mm, mm.
I have a bunch of issues, but what is the most fundamental issue, right? In business, maybe the culture, right? So because culture is bad, every other bad things happen, for example, right? So I try to understand, I try to simplify what the issue is that I need to work on. And so I take one step back, and then, as I said, I try to analyze the forest first.
Well, Hiro, we've reached the end of our program. I do want to give you 10 seconds or something to say some final remarks, but let me express my deepest appreciation to you for today's webinar. You have enlightened me on so many things. Some of the things I take away from this are listening quietly, the importance of consistency, transparency, this compound eye and viewing things from different ways, and maybe most importantly, if I'm going to boil it down to the simple physics, trying to create a harmonious world. I think there are lots of forces trying to destroy and that are negative, but let's be a force for positivity. That's my aim. That's our goal here at GCI. But let me thank you. Let me thank the audience. Let me turn it to you for final remarks, and then we'll say goodbye.
Thank you, David, for having me today. And I would like to thank the participants to join us, in this discussion. What I would say is that make your friends everywhere in the whole world on this planet, right? And then have that confidence that no matter what happens, we can talk about it and we can find a solution, right, together. That's what we need for humanity to advance. So what I would ask all the young members who joined today, that get exposed to different views, make your friends, right, over your lifetime. They would become the most invaluable treasures in your life. I do have those people as well. I know that we may have different ideas, but I have this confidence we can talk about anything, and then we will try to find a solution. So that will be my concluding message for the participants. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. And on that note, thank you, Hiro, for your friendship and all you do for everyone in the world every day. I really appreciate your time. Thanks again to the audience, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.